Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to my channel, Work Life with Praveen. As promised, today we will be speaking about chapter one, which is going to be about what exactly is leadership, uh, why leadership is important for the companies, organization, teams, or countries, or even the world, and also all in all, we will be speaking about the foundations of leadership. Now, before we begin, a little bit about myself so that you know what kind of guy Praveen is. How does he have this kind of experience? Is he the right person to actually speak about leadership? So I thought maybe I'll introduce a little bit about myself in today's video. So I'm Praveen. I'm in Bangalore, India. I've been in the corporate world for almost 17 years now, out of which I've been a manager or a leader for almost 10 years, 9.5, 10 years. And so in these 17 years, I've started my career as customer care executive. Then I moved to become a tech support associate or a executive. Then I actually got into the engineering side of things, and then I'm managed few teams at IBM, Dell, and the latest one was LinkedIn. So overall, 17 years of experience is what I have in the corporate world. Out of which around 9.5, 10 years is as a people manager or a people leader. So that's a little bit about myself, and let's get right into the topic that we are here to discuss. So, the first thing that we are going to speak about in today's episode is going to be about why leadership. Why leadership should be for you, or for your team, or for your business, or even for your country. Why is it important? Now, let's consider a sports team. Now, let's consider cricket because most of us in India like cricket. So let's consider cricket as one of the sports. And in cricket, we have 11 players who have different skill sets. Some of them would be batsmen, some of them would be bowlers, one individual would be a wicket keeper. So around 11 players play on any given day in that particular match on either side, right? Now, imagine a situation where we have a team, but we don't have a leader. In cricketing terms, we don't have a captain. Now, that particular team would not know what the strategy or what the plan is going to look like in this particular match, whatever match they are playing. So they would not have any clue as to what the plan is or what the strategy is to make sure that the outcome of the result of the match, or basically the outcome of the match, is in our favor. Let me expand that a little bit. Now, let's say if I'm a batsman, I'm not a captain, I'm just a batsman. I went ahead and started to bat. Now, without a plan or a strategy or anyone to tell me how I should be batting on that particular day, should I be defensive or should I go a little bit assertive or even offensive? I would not have any clue because nobody would have told me that. Now, let's assume a situation where we don't have a captain, but we have 4 or 5 individuals who like to lead, but are not leaders or captain on paper. So they don't have any responsibility on the outcome of that match result. So let's say these 3 or 4 individuals, each of them come to me and they say, hey, you know what? One individual says, hey, you know what? Play defensive today so that you can play as long as possible. We need you to stay on the pitch or stay on the crease as much as you can. But let's say after 20 minutes, another break, another person comes and he says, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and start being assertive or aggressive because there are a lot of batsmen yet to come. And let's say the next person comes, he says, hey, you know what, think about your own strategy and start playing and just be yourself, or whatever that is, right? Now here, as a batsman, I get confused as to what the team's strategy is. Now, I can either think, hey, you know what, I'm an individual, Let me play as an individual. Let me do whatever I can in that particular moment, but I would not know what would the team need me to do, or what does my team need me to do in order for us to actually win that particular match. And that's exactly what happens in the organizations. That's exactly what happens in fact, the family. Let's say if you are in a family of, let's say, 3 or 5. Let's say you're staying with your parents, you have a wife, you have a kid, or a couple of kids. Now, if there is no leader, it could be anyone, but let's say if there is no leader in that family, you would not have anyone who can actually tell people what they need to do. Let's say if I'm a father of a, let's say, 10-year-old son, and let's say if I'm not telling him, or if I'm not taking the responsibility to be the leader of the house, I will not be able to tell him what he needs to do on any given day. Now, I'm not going to control him, but at least as a leader or as a father, it's my responsibility to tell my son to actually do what is needed, or what I think is needed for him to do at that particular age. Him doing it, not doing it, that's secondary. Maybe he grows up a little bit, maybe once he becomes 15 or 16 or even 20, maybe he'll go on his own. But until then, I have to make sure that I take care of him, I show him the directions, or I should at least guide him in the right way so that he knows what's wrong and what's right, what he can do or what he cannot do, what he should do, what he should not do. And that is something similar in, let's say, if we are speaking about the countries. Let's say if we don't have a prime minister, we have a cabinet of ministers. Every minister will want maximum amount of budget allocated to their own ministry. Now, if that happens, now on the outset, it might feel that, hey, you know what? Yeah, that's okay. But think about it. If all the cabinet ministers, let's say if a rail minister, or let's say the roadway minister, or even the power minister, or education minister, or a textile minister, all of them fight among each other to say that, hey, you know what, I want maximum budget allotted this fiscal year, or whatever is available, I'm sure they would not be aligned. I'm sure there would be a situation where there would be a lot of conflict among themselves, which will not be good for the citizens, which will not be good for the country, if not in short term, but in long term, that's not going to sustain. But let's say if we have someone who can take the responsibility to make sure that all of them can get aligned to what the common objective is. In this example, let's say if a prime minister's idea is to actually build infrastructure in this fiscal year so that he can get as much as investments into the country as possible, right? Now, if that is the agenda, now he's the person who has set the agenda for the upcoming fiscal year, which is for next 12 months. Now, him saying that in the meeting or the cabinet meeting, now all the other cabinet ministers would know what exactly the agenda is looking like for next 12 months. So all of them will be in a better position to understand what is needed of them. And let's say if this fiscal year, if they are not able to get the budget that they were hoping for, maybe they can speak to the prime minister, they can speak to the other ministers so that they can get that budget in the next fiscal year's budget. But that is an important part or an important role of a leader, no matter what situation you are in, or in no matter what group you are in. It is same for a group of 5 individuals, it is same for a group of 10 individuals, it is same for a group of 100 individuals, or state, country, continent, or whatever, right? So that is the reason why we need someone to take that responsibility, and that individual is called a leader. Now, some leaders could be leaders on paper, or they will have that title. Let's say one of the examples I gave you, which is the cricketing example, I said, okay, a captain is a leader. Let's say in case of the country, it could be the president or the prime minister. Depends on whichever part of the world you are in. But oftentimes, you don't need to have a title to be a leader. What I mean by that is, again, let me explain that bit. When I say you don't need to have a title to be a leader, is oftentimes in our lives, we would have experienced that no matter what situation we are in, there are individuals who own that responsibility, and probably they are the individuals whom we kind of look up to say, okay, you know what, this is a situation, what do you think I should be doing? Now that person is a leader, though that person is not a leader on title or on papers, but that person is a leader. In case of the family example I gave you, now I might not have a title of a leader on papers in my own family, but let's say I have a wife, and let's say she is good at finance. Now, let's say if she is good thinking about financially finance planning or whatever, if she is better than me, then obviously I will look at her and say that, hey, you know what, we will have to get our house's budget or home budget under control. Think about a plan or a strategy. And a couple of days later, she comes to me and says, hey, you know what, these are some of the expenses which we think or which I think we should reduce. And for me, at that moment, for that particular topic or for that particular situation, she turned out to be a leader. Now, I hope I was simple enough to explain you all the responsibility of a leader, why leadership is important, and who the true leader is, regardless of having a title or not having a title. Now, we will get into the next part of it, which is different styles of leadership. Obviously, for some of us who are not into the leadership role or a manager's role or a director's or whatever leadership role that you are in, for some of us, we might not be aware of some of the technological terms or some of the terms that we use when it comes to the leadership style. Now, one of the primary or one of the tossed around terms we often hear these days is servant leadership. Now, on the outset, the word servant leadership is self-explanatory. What that means is basically a leader in the group of people is a leader to serve the individuals in that particular group. As simple as that. For example, I'm a manager. I have 15 odd people in my team, and my leadership style, if I say I'm a servant leader, my leadership style is basically to say I'm here to serve each and every individual in this team, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or whatever that is. So that is basically servant leadership. For everything, I will look at it as being of service to someone. Now, that is as far as the organizational servant leadership is concerned. But at the same time, let's say if you're speaking about the country, the leader of the country could say that, okay, I'm here to serve the nation, I'm here to serve the people of the nation. Whatever my decisions are, or whatever my strategy is, or whatever my planning is to serve the individuals in this particular country. Now, that is basically servant leadership. Then comes another term, which is transformational leadership, where the leader's objective is to make sure that this individual or even this team transforms into a stronger team in whatever time that person would have decided. Let me give you an example. Now, majority of my leadership style could be a transformational leadership style, but again, okay, so let me take a step back. Now, as a leader, though you are aware of a lot of terms when it comes to, let's say, leadership, which is servant leadership, transformational leadership, democratic leadership, or whatever your leadership style is, let me be very crystal clear in saying that one individual has to possess all these terms or has to possess all these qualities to be a great leader. Now, I cannot just say that, okay, I'm a servant leader. I cannot just say that I'm a transformational leader. I cannot say I'm a democratic leader. Sometimes, as a leader, my objective or my role would be to make sure that I go undemocratic sometimes, because let's say if I see that the team is not heading in the right direction, or let's say if I have a team members who are struggling in doing something, but I know that they have a huge potential in doing the right thing or by doing the right thing, I would go a little bit off track in saying that, okay, you know what, let's go undemocratic just for this once, and let me tell you what needs to be done. This is the case when it comes to, let's say, if you have a lot of new hires, or let's say if you have a lot of freshers or someone who is just out of college or just out of school, and they would not have any idea as to what I should be doing in my career or in this particular role. So I just have to shift my leadership style a little bit, and I say that, okay, you know what, let me go undemocratic, and I say that, okay, let me not ask a lot of individuals in the team to say, okay, what do you think this person should do, but let me tell them what I think they should do, based on my experience, based on my years of experience. What do I think this person should be doing? So a lot of terms I've tossed around, which is servant leadership, democratic leadership, transformational leadership. Again, for dictators, we have something called autocratic leadership, where basically they are not servant leaders, they are not transformational leaders, they are not democratic leaders, but they purely believe just in themselves. They think that they know pretty much everything that there is to be known, and they think that everyone else in the country or everyone else in the team or everyone else in the organization is there to serve them and not the other way around. So all in all, again, so that is something that I would not recommend. If you think that, okay, there is a little bit of autocratic leadership style that you have gotten used to, let's get ourselves out of it, and try to kind of be servant leader, transformational leader, democratic leader. All in all, what I'm trying to say is be an adaptive leader. Right now, adaptive leader is someone who has the quality of all the previously mentioned leadership styles. Plus, as a bonus, this person also comes with years of experience where he can adapt to that particular situation. And in my experience over the years, I've seen that a lot of leaders who are adaptive, who call themselves adaptive leaders, have thrived, and their teams have thrived on a longer run. So that is something that I would highly recommend. Learn as much as you can when it comes to these different terms, different terminologies, different leadership styles, but at the same time add a little bit of a spice that comes with your experience, and try to be adaptive to whatever situation it is. It is true for the leadership style. It is true for organizations. Organizations have to be adaptive in this fast-paced environment that we are in. If not, they will falter, and that is the reason why I say that, okay, let's try to be adaptive leaders rather than one specific or get used to one specific leadership style. Now, let's jump on to the second bit that I'm going to be speaking about in today's video, which is basically the difference between leadership and the difference between management. Leadership, or a leader, or manager. Now, most of us often get confused. In fact, I was, when I got my first leadership role back in, I think, 2005-ish, which was around 9 years ago, when I had gotten my first leadership role. in one of the technology companies that I was working for. Um, I didn't know the difference between being a leader and being a manager, and I watched as many as videos possible on YouTube. I learned as much as I could. I read a lot of books, and I felt, based on just the description, I felt, okay, let me be a leader and not a manager. But after 9-10 years in the role, after mentoring, coaching a lot of individual contributors, supervisors, and managers alike, I've come to realize that leader, being called a leader and being called a manager are one and the same thing. Yes, the role differs if you kind of get deeper into the leadership principles or the management principles. The On the outside, the role is pretty much the same, but if you kind of deep dive into it, there are these fine lines that kind of come with these two specific themes that we are going to be speaking about. Now, what do we mean by being a leader? Being a leader simply means that you are a person who goes by values, the purpose, the vision, the mission, the people that you care, the team, empathy, compassion, all these things bundled together, and the person who is able to kind of take care of the team, the organization, or the country, or the family, or whatever, that individual can be called as a leader. But if you are being called as a manager, do not take that in an offensive way, because being a manager is also important, because sometimes we often say that, okay, he's a manager but not a leader. I mean, that is a topic that we will speak about in on another day. But to just to kind of keep it simple, a leader is someone who is focused on the values, the mission, the people, the team, care, empathy, compassion. All these things bundled together is what makes a leader. A manager is someone who is focused on the processes, procedures, the legalities of whatever the situation that they are in. And these are some of the things that a manager is supposed to take care of. Now, if you are running an organization, or if you're working in an organization, and if you have an individual who is ready to be promoted to be a manager or a leader, in other words, be not afraid to select that person if you are not seeing either one of the sides in him, because both the skill sets can be learned. You can coach that individual to learn that skill sets. It's just that explaining that individual how or what the primary difference is, and basically helping that person to upskill themselves, and then kind of get better in that particular role. And why are both important? Again, just to kind of reiterate on something that we are just kind of speaking about. Let's say if I have a leader who is very compassionate, who is very empathetic with his team, but his team is not able to kind of deliver on the results consistently, and it's nothing to do with their skill sets, it's nothing to do with the knowledge that they have, but you realize that, okay, there's something to do with their interest in that particular role, or in that interest in that particular job. Now, in this situation, you will have to switch gears, and from a leader, you have to slowly become a manager. I'm not saying overnight, but slowly you have to kind of start showing them what it would mean if they don't actually work to their potential sooner than later. Basically, you have to tell them that, okay, you know what, this is the performance issues that you're seeing in them. This is the process. If you don't do it, obviously, all this comes a lot after all the previous conversations that you've had with them, where you are kind of telling them what is the support that they need, providing them all the support, all that stuff. And later, even after all this, let's say if you have an individual in the team who is not able to kind of up their game, and you just feel that okay, this person just has that will issue, then in that case you have to be a manager and not a leader. So because there are some decisions that probably you will have to take, which is difficult for you, difficult for the organization, but it's in best interest for yourself, for that individual, that employee, and for the organization. So it's on short term it might feel that okay, you are being very ruthless sometimes, but I think on in longer term that individual will thank you if he gets to know or she gets to know why you had to take that decision. So again, basically the responsibility of a leader, the responsibility of a manager is one and the same. It's just that sometimes we get caught up in these different terms, in this different so-called themes around leadership or manager or management, but know that okay, one individual should have both these skill sets, and that person has to kind of adapt to each or either one of those based on whatever situation they are in. Now, in the last topic for today will be about the role of a leader, responsibility. We'll speak about the influence that they'll have and why it is important for a leader to have accountability as well. Now, you said okay, Praveen, you said okay, why leadership is important. You've spoken about different leadership styles, you've spoken about the difference between a leader and a manager, but tell me this: what is the role of a leader? Now, if your question is that, just hang on with me. That is something that we will be speaking in next 5 to 7 minutes, or basically for next 5 to 7 minutes. So now, the role of a leader or a manager is basically to make sure that the team and the business is able to deliver on what was promised, either to the customer or to the organization or to themselves. I mean, a lot of times, I as an employee or I as an individual would have made a lot of promises with myself to say, okay, you know what, 2 years later, I will get promoted to this particular role. Now, as a leader, it's my manager's job to make sure that I am coached enough, I'm informed enough, I am upskilled enough to make sure when the time comes, I'm ready. So that is the responsibility of my manager towards me. And at the same time, my manager's responsibility would also to make sure that the organization or the team actually meets whatever decided or whatever the agreed upon targets or agreed upon metric was for this fiscal year or for this month or for that particular day or a week. So that is one of the things that a leader or a manager is supposed to do, which is have responsibility or take responsibility for each and every one that they kind of work for. And that includes customers, external stakeholders, in other words, or internal stakeholders. The next thing that we will be speaking about is how a leader can have influence in our lives. So for that, I'll have to basically give you an example that I went through, in my experience, which is I was working as a tech support associate in one of the organizations, and basically there was a time where I was tired, I was frustrated because I was not getting promoted, no matter how hard I worked. Again, if I look back, it was maybe my some of the things that I could have done better, but at that time, at the age of 21, 22, I was blaming the organization, I was blaming my then manager, and all of that stuff was happening to me. And I was ready to put down my papers. I was ready to resign from that particular job. And there was another manager from another team who used to come with me in the office provided cabs or office provided cars, or transportation, in other words. And I was just, I was a little friendly with him because he was the most kindest and the most compassionate leader I had ever worked with. So I was just speaking to him and I said that, hey, you know what? I'm going to put down my papers today because I'm done with this job. I'm tired of my manager. He just doesn't seem to care because even after so much of hard work, I'm not being promoted and things like it. So he just asked me one question. He said, you're young. I just have one question for you before you actually go ahead and make your resignation formal to your manager. Have you asked yourself if the next organization, wherever you're going, you will have an amazing manager who will have your back 365 days a year, no matter what you do? Can you guarantee that to yourself? And when I asked that question to myself on the way to office, the answer was no. You cannot really guarantee that your next boss, your next colleague, your next peer, or your next friend, as a matter of fact, will be as good as the previous one. You just have to go there and you kind of have to experience it. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be worse. You will never know until you have actually tried it. So that one question actually changed my life. The way I started looking at things completely changed. And the reason why I'm sharing that example or that experience with all of you all is basically to explain you the kind of influence a leader can have on any individual in their team or even outside of their team, because they come with so much of experience, they come with so much of knowledge, and sometimes like I said, I was 21, 22 back then. So sometimes individuals who have just embarked on their new journey in their careers, we need to hear from someone like this who has seen life, who has experienced life for 10, 15, 20 years, so that we can learn from it too and kind of make sure that our growth trajectory is at least in a better shape, if and not worse if we don't have anything like a mentor or a coach or anything. So basically what I'm trying to say is a leader's influence is very, very important in your current roles or in your future roles as well. Consider them as your mentors, consider them as your coach. Obviously, there would be some individuals who call themselves as managers or leaders who might not be right for that particular role, but at the same time, it all depends on the way you look at things. Let's say if you are someone who would own up to the mistakes or own up to the situation that you are in, probably you will try to speak to that person and try to explain your point of view. And even after that, let's say if things are not going in a right direction, probably there are better ways to correct it than just to kind of go full offensive and try to correct it, or whatever we think in our young age or out of inexperience, right? So these are some of the things that I would highly recommend you to do to kind of just summarize today's episode. Again, we spoke about what is leadership. We spoke about different types of leadership, which is servant leadership, democratic leadership, transformational leadership, and how the whole thing is a package, and that package can be called as adaptive leadership. Then we spoke about what is leadership, what we spoke about what is management, what is a leader and what is a manager, how both are same, some of the key differences between a leader and a manager, and why both are important for your team, for your organization, and for yourself. And then we also spoke about the role of a leader when it comes to taking the responsibility. We also spoke about the role of a leader when it comes to the influence that they'll have on their teams. And we also spoke about some of the accountability metrics that leaders are always assessed on. Now, with that, I'm concluding today's chapter or today's video. If you have found this interesting, if you've have found this video of some use, of some knowledge, please go ahead and hit the like button and hit subscribe. I will be uploading my next chapter on leadership next Wednesday. So if you have subscribed to my channel already, then fantastic. If not, hit that subscribe button again so that you can be notified as soon as I upload that chapter. Until then, be great, be relentless, have a great day.